One of a major issue is, as of today, in Nigeria. I mean, the people will ask you, can your minimum wage or your take-home take you home in the real sense? Because of the cost of commodities in the market. How much did you buy a bag of rice 1 year ago? How much are you buying it in the market today? Just a cup of tomatoes in the market, how much does it cost? A bag of, a keg of groundnut oil, how much does it? These are basic food materials that you use every day. The bread, price of bread has gone up. A lot of things happen in the economy which affects the fundamentals and the bottom line of the purchasing power of the average citizen. So when the fuel subsidy removal was announced by the president on the 29th of May last year said subsidy must go. It came with consequential impact, one of which is it directly affects the purchasing power, the money in your pocket, the food on your table. And therefore, government have thought that there must be a difference and a change in the minimum wage regime, which has been placed at 30,000. Those of you who are workers in the state will be asking the question, are the state government even paying the 30,000, which is supposed to be the minimum pay for any worker in Nigeria? So there was an inauguration of the Tripartite National Minimum Wage Committee. It was inaugurated by the Vice President Kashim Shettima at the presidential villa earlier today, which we're supposed to incorporate all stakeholders to sit down and fashion out the new minimum wage. This will affect a lot of things. Either you're a worker in the private sector or in the government sector. Let me allow you to listen to the Vice President, Kashim Shettima.
The issue of a national minimum wage for the Federation falls within the exclusive legislative list of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is amended. Therefore, our objective should be to surpass the basic social protection flow for all Nigerian workers, considering the sustainable payment capacity of each tier of government and other employers or businesses. I express this viewpoint because the minimum wage represents the least amount of compensation an employee should receive for their labor, and as such, it should be rooted in social justice and equity. I hope that the results of your deliberations will be consensual and acceptable to all parties involved. The government's decision, following the consideration of your final recommendations, will be presented as an executive bill to the National Assembly. The bill, enriched by the contributions of state governments and private sector employers, will undergo thorough legislative scrutiny before being passed into law.
All right, that's the Vice President, Kashim Shettima. But there are others who are waiting on this. Let me allow you to listen to the chair of the Minimum Wage, National Minimum Wage Committee, and the president of the TUC. Take a listen to them.
We shall, by the grace of God, Your Excellency, make some extensive consultations with broad spectrum of stakeholders to be able to arrive at a new national minimum wage that is fair, practical, implementable, and sustainable for the good of our people and our country.
Is nothing. So the Nigerian workers, as we speak now, are facing through excruciating period. In fact, we've had a lot of minimum wage negotiations over the years, but this one will stand out. It will stand out because we have never seen a time like this in Nigeria. So this is a period where people are passing through pain, people are passing, in fact, the purchasing power of an average Nigerian workers, and indeed the entire Nigerian masses has been eroded. So we are going to put on our thinking cap and we are going to press to get the best for the working people of Nigeria.
All right, there you have it. That is the TUC President Festus Osifo and the chair of the National Minimum Wage Committee. But at some point in the conversation, if need be, we might be hearing from one of the governors who spoke on behalf of the governors, because it is important for us to know what the state government are also doing, not only staying on what the national or the federal workers are earning or the conditions of service. Let's speak with the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero, who joins us virtually. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Is this the right direction that you hope for? Because I remember last year, this was one of the decision of Labour in its engagement with the federal government. There must be a minimum wage committee to be inaugurated within 1 month from the day of the agreement, which was in sometimes in October last year, early October last year. But it is happening. The inauguration is happening today.
Yeah, ordinarily, the part of the act provides for the inauguration to take place 6 months before the time the date expires. And the date for expiration of the last minimum wage is in March. And the federal government is inaugurating the committee by the end of January. Ordinarily, we'll have barely 1 month plus to work on. I pray that we'll work seriously to actualize, the aim within this 1 month.
Give us an understanding on the view of the Nigerian Labour and NLC in respect of what was agreed today. Is it in line with what you planned or what you agree, your agreement with the federal government?
Well, the agreement is to have a minimum wage committee, where the tripartite body will discuss, and agree on a possible minimum wage that will be more inclusive, and that would address the needs of the worker in the present dispensation. However, from the composition of the committee, especially the governors, and I want to be quoted that most of the governors in the minimum wage committee are those that are either not paying the current minimum wage or are paying it in breaches. So I pray that we'll enter this with open heart. The governors that are in full compliance of the minimum wage, the previous ones, are not adequately represented in this committee. So whatever made the federal government to bring those who are either not complying or complying in breaches to form the bulk of the membership of the minimum wage committee from the state governments, maybe that will unfold with time.
Why are you not calling out the state governors or those who are falling short of the expectations of Labour? Because it is not all the state government that are involved. Which of the states are not state? Because we understand that several state governments are not able to come up or meet up with the national minimum wage standard.
Yeah, some of them are not meeting up. Like you mentioned, a state like Zamfara. I don't know how much the Borno and Bauchi are paying. However, there is a minimum wage law, which criminalizes the non-compliance of the minimum wage. And the Nigerian state has not at any point in time welded or tried to enforce that law. And that is why people come out of it. Some others are just implementing it in breach. Now I take Anambra State, for instance. Anambra State is paying 30,000, for the least paid. And then by the time they graduated, I challenge anybody from Anambra to prove that even a permanent secretary is getting up to 170 or 180,000 naira in Anambra. So you see a situation where they graduated and pay maybe 100 naira or 1,000 in form of differential, That is not in the spirit and letters of the implementation of the minimum wage.
So now we're going a step higher. We went from 18,000 to 30,000. And I remember having a conversation like this some years back, that even the 18,000 at that time, a lot of state governments were not living up to it. And there are governments, state governments, that have said, look, some of them may not be able to pay as much as some other states because of the viability and financial capacity of those states. In fact, at the passage of the 30,000 naira national minimum wage, some state governments were declared insolvent. Some states were they were declared insolvent. The federal government had to help some state governments to be able to pay salary or to run their own affairs. I mean, it comes to the point that there are those who will say national minimum wage. The price of commodity in Lagos might not be the same in Kebbi, might not be the same in Ekiti or Osun or Kwara. Can you put all of the workers across the country in one basket?
Well, I don't think there is any place in the country that the cost of living has not, jumped up. But we'll try to look at the minimum of what happens. There is no state in the country that the cost of rice, bread, whatever has not jumped up. That would be wrong to say that. It may vary, the cost of living in some states. But when we get the average, it will enable us to equally look at what is obtainable. And that is what constitutes the issue of minimum. It's a kind of benchmark, on what could be affordable nationwide. Now, if you have a minimum, there are states based on the ability to pay, based on the resources available to them, that are expected to do more. And that's why you now talk of the cost of living in such states. Never in the history of minimum wage in Nigeria had Rivers State or Bayelsa or Lagos paid the same thing as others. But we need to get the minimum to protect the weak, notwithstanding the state where they are operating from. As we talk today, and to the credit of Edo State government, they are paying 40,000 as of today, even when the minimum wage is 30,000. So, and that's the kind of thing we expect, and not people who will pay below the minimum. So, when we set the minimum, which should be affordable to an average state, and then states based on their ability, are expected to pay high, and it is happening either in Rivers or Lagos or whatever, and that the cost of living in some of these states are equally high.
But what will satisfy labor? Indeed, you're going into these consultation. What are those indices that Nigerian labor is having on its plate going into these negotiations?
We're going to be very practical on when you say those indices. We're going to look at cost of living index. I've continued to say this. We're going to look at the cost of bread, loaf of bread, cost of gari, cost of rice, cost of transportation, house rent. Take even the least worker without even saving one kobo, and then come out with a realistic amount, which anybody can take to anywhere and find out that this is what a person is supposed to live with, even without saving 1 naira or 2 naira. And when we come out with it, you will see that it will be interesting.
But what would be most paramount on the list of the labor going into this negotiation?
Well, that is why it's called negotiation. As we move into it, the dynamics will continue to change. Because as we talk today, the value of the naira, is going down. As we negotiate, if we waste 1 month, the value will continue to go down, and we will adjust, to what is happening. The cost of living will continue to change, and will adjust based on the dynamics. We may not have a long period of reopener clause, because if we do it, if you stretch whatever we're going to have now for 4 years or 5 years, we'll come back to where we are today, where people are suffering. We may consider a short-term reopener clause so that we can adjust to the dynamics of the currency and the cost of living.
There are a lot of things. Those who will fear that, why is the dollar controlling our local economy here in Nigeria? And there are those who are for that. The Nigerian economy has been largely dollarized. I mean, there are schools here in Nigeria that they are paying with dollars as against the established laws of our land. And in fact, it's so much that Nigerians are more concerned about the value of the dollar to the naira. Why not more concerned about production and productivity on the ground here locally, which is supposed to be the focus of everyone? I mean, is Labour worried about this scenario? Because if that is what everybody is, focusing on and putting their gaze on, we will still be drawn down by this same factor, no matter, even if the minimum wage is 1,000 naira. I mean, 100,000 naira.
The issue of dollarization of the currency is clear, and the federal government is not doing anything about it. Most transactions are based on that, and that is what is affecting most of the contracts they are going into, international and otherwise, are based on the value of the dollar, based on the dollar. Even the issue of gas to power, this country is based on the dollar, and all that. And then we had to work on that, to benchmark the naira to the dollar. It's worrisome, and we are worried about it. But as of today, that is what is prevalent. And we have to work on it, since to them that's the international standard and international benchmark. Labour is worried about it. Yeah, but there's nothing we can do about it, since the Nigerian government have chosen, the dollar as a formal currency that they will benchmark all that they are doing.
So the Labour is helpless in this sense.
If we work, sorry?
I'm saying so. The Nigerian Labour is helpless in that sense.
Yeah, in this situation, yes. But if we're able to check, the slide, if we get it has been constant, assuming today the dollar is pegged to naira, maybe 1,000 to $1 in that order or any. Now, if we take inflation as constant, we can have a meaningful, negotiation.
It looks like your device went in mute mode. All right. So let me get your view on this, because what led to all of this conversation in the first place last year was how the Nigerian labor, the organized labor, reacted to the impact and the implications of the removal of subsidy. And part of the agreement that was reached with the federal government include the granting of a wage award of 35,000 to all federal government workers beginning from the month of September, pending when a new national minimum wage is expected to have been signed into law. First and foremost, has that been implemented?
The answer is heck no. The federal government implemented it for the first month. And as we move towards this issue of minimum wage negotiation, those areas up to this moment must be paid. Those are some of the points we have to clear before we get to where we are today. The idea of signing agreements, going into agreements, genuinely without any compulsion, and failing to implement it, is what we should work hard against. All the agreements read there, either the commissioning of the refinery, either the CNG gas, the federal government has not complied with any. And here we are moving into the issue of minimum wage. There is no sign that they will even implement this if they have failed in implementing others. In the case of wage award, yes, 1 month was paid clearly, and subsequently from various organizations, private sector, some government agencies, some of them are not even talking. Even the state governments, some of them are not talking. They are not even meeting with the workers from those areas. So, and this is a bad example. Bear in mind that the federal government is not just an employer, but they are regulators. And I think they should not be seen to be setting a bad precedent.
No, especially but that was not the only thing, NLC president, that you agree with federal government, and is worrying. If you say that you have this agreement with federal government and they've only implemented it once out of the 3 months, it's supposed to be a cushioning effect in the implication of the removal of fuel subsidy. So, for example, you entered into an agreement with the federal government for that 35,000. You said only 1 month has been implemented. You also accepted an agreement that the federal government should vote 100 billion naira for the provision of CNG buses for mass transit in Nigeria. On one hand, audit, I want to know whether or not that has been implemented. Another thing that you entered into an agreement with the federal government is that they committed to pay 25,000 naira per month for 3 months, starting from October, to 15 million households, including vulnerable pensioners. Has that also been implemented? Because you gave me a commitment, NLC president, that you will set up a team from the NLC to monitor all of these. There are a lot of people who are crying at the palliatives they cannot see.
Yeah, that's the report you are getting from me. If I'm telling you that none of this has been implemented, it then means that, from my own team, from our own committee, that's the feedback we got from them. We don't have the powers to make this payment. We equally have the powers to monitor the implementation. Whatever happened on the issue of cash transfer, you are aware of it. We only said we will not be party to or signatory to those that are transferring it. Of course, you have seen the way it went out now and what is happening with that issue of cash transfer. And I actually told you about this issue of CNG, that it has not been implemented. I even went ahead to tell you that even the refineries they said will start operation by December has not happened. And on the issue of a wage award, I mentioned to you here that only 1 month has been paid. This is the
so what part of the agreement has been implemented or executed by the federal government, or out of the almost 15 items on that agreement, none has been implemented? Is that the case?
None has been fully. In fact, those that are implemented are not implemented up to 20%, and the others 0%.
Is it a failure on the part of Labour to ensure because you are a party to it, or if the federal government is not living to its bidding, what is the Labour doing? Can the Nigerian people trust Labour? Because you sat on the same table. If they are not implementing it, why have you not spoken up?
What do you mean by trust in this regard? For Labour to go on strike when they are telling you they will pay arrears and they will do it tomorrow, we normally allow a benefit of doubt before we eventually take that position. It is our duty to remind them. I've held a meeting with even the Minister of State on Labour this year, where she made a commitment that they will pay arrears probably by the end of the month. We have to allow those benefits of that, because equally from some other tendencies, they will still analyze that even going on strike is worsening the economy or whatever. It is only when we realize, that these issues, and there's a deliberate effort that they don't want to comply, that will.
NLC President, apologies. Can we then trust anything that goes on with the Labour and the FG when they say they are going into an agreement? Can Nigerian people trust anything that comes out of those agreements? If out of the 15-line item, hopes of Nigerians were raised in October last year when the economic crunch was biting so hard on the heels of the implementation of the removal of fuel subsidy, and they're expecting that this and that and that were going to be implemented based on the list of the agreement. Where does it leave the average Nigerian person?
You are talking of trust. Why do you trust the government? Whose duty it is to pay? And you are talking of an agreement reached by two parties, and one party, seems to be standing by the agreement, and the other party is failing. And now your trust deficit is on level. I want you to balance it. If two people went into agreement and one party has refused to, comply, must he take a fight? Must he take a beating to beat them into line? For them to equally comply.
I'm saying that the Nigerian workers and the Nigerian people are bearing the brunt. They are the grass that are suffering.
Because of the inability of government to live up to expectation on this.
Are you going to continue to watch them not doing it? You are supposed to be
supposed to do what?
To make them to enforce that, to execute it. Since it agreed with you.
With gone. We will follow a process, and that process will evolve to something. And it's not, for you or anybody to tell us to do it tomorrow. We are following the process, and every Nigerian will understand that we have followed through a long process, and that this Nigerian state has refused to comply. And when we come, we are coming.
So what commitment can you give to Nigeria? You are going into yet another negotiation on behalf of the Nigerian workers. What word can you give to Nigerians tonight in this respect?
As we talk today, do we have option than to go into this negotiation? The answer is no. Are we complied? Are we compelled by our calling to make sure that previous agreements are obeyed? The answer is yes. And then how we follow it up, doesn't take the dictates of either the media or anybody. We have to be reasonable about it, follow the laid down guidelines and achieve it. Both the previous agreements and the one we are going into will make sure they're enforced.
All right. President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajaero, speaking with us virtually there. Thank you so much. I need to tell you that a lot of Nigerians are not finding it funny in the sense that things are hard, things are difficult, but then we are hoping for the best. This country belongs to all of us, and we keep working hard to get the best out of it. Thank you so much indeed, Comrade Ajaero.
We should discourage the docility of an average Nigerian worker or Nigerian. Because if you give a directive tomorrow to come out, most of those people will tell you, that they belong to A or B. So I think this is a call for every one of us, to be consensus on what is happening. We are coming.
All right. Thank you so much. We will be looking forward to your coming, especially the implementation part that will affect the average Nigerian and the fundamentals of their pocket and what the food on their table. Thank you so much.
After those negotiations, remember the NLC president was put out of circulation for whatever purpose, the federal government and each state may have decided. We are coming. I'm still away. I will come back after my medical treatment.
Thank you. I wish you well. Get well. Joe, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.